Just as a note, Boxplots can be made both vertically or horizontally. I personally like the horizontal view. However, StatCrunch defaults to this view, to the vertical view. So if you want to switch it, there's an option in StatCrunch to switch it to going horizontally. Do whatever you want. It's a personal preference. Okay, well, what do you do with these, quote, potential outliers? Again, a boxplot can't determine them 100%. It can only say it's potentially an outlier. So what should you do? Well, you should investigate further. So the first thing I would do if you see one of them is look at a histogram. So both of these, we're going to look at two of them, show potential outliers in their box plots, and we want to look at the associated histograms to figure out what's really going on. This first one is the National Assessment of Educational Progress. So that is an international math test that's given to 42 different countries. And this is the scores that came back in 2007. And in 2007, let's see, South Africa's score of 264 is down here, and it's flagged as a potential outlier. It's beyond the limit of that whisker. Now, do we think it's a true outlier or not? Well, over here they've given us the histogram, and the 264 is included in this last, or I guess the very first bin that we've got there. Now, while we're looking at the histogram, I don't see any gaps. I see other scores that must also be pretty close to that. So when I look at the histogram and I don't see any gaps, I might want to mess with the bin sizes a little bit, if I could, to make sure that in none of the views I get a giant gap. But I would probably determine on this one that it's not a true outlier. Since the histogram isn't really supporting that. Now in this other example, we've got fuel economy for 2010 model sedans. Then these were given on the websites of the different dealers. It says the Ford Fusion and the Toyota Prius are flagged as potential outliers. And then when we come over here and we look at the histogram, notice we've got gaps. They really are separated by quite a lot from the bulk of the data. So on this one, I would probably tend to say, yes, these are outliers. Because there are gaps in the histogram. And if I had to go out on a limb and speculate as to what's going on with those two cars, I might venture to guess that maybe these are hybrids. And that's why they are so much higher than the other cars. Okay, so for our last example, we've got a dot plot here. These are pass rates for a bar exam of 185 law schools in the US in 2009. And notice they've given us the 5-number summary to go along with this. So it's important that we know what these 5 numbers mean. So again, the 5 numbers are the minimum, Q1, the median, Q3, and the max. So we are going to draw an entire box plot with this information below this dot plot. And we're going to explain how we determined where those whiskers go. Okay, so first thing we want to do is calculate the IQR. IQR is, again, Q3 minus Q1. So that's 90 minus 80, which is 10 in this case. I switched these around on us. So this is actually the lower limit, and this is actually the upper limit. So make that change on your note sheet. The lower limit is Q1 minus 1.5 IQRs, so that's 80 minus 1.5 times 10, which is, sorry, I keep hitting my keyboard when I'm trying to write. So that's 80 minus 15. So that'll be 65. Okay, I'm going to leave some space here and we will determine whether we really want to make it go out that far or not. So right now that's my potential end of my whisker. Let's go ahead and go down and calculate the upper limit. The upper limit then is 90 plus 1.5 times 10, which is 90 plus 15, which is 105. Okay, so potentially that's how far we're going to draw out our whiskers. So I'm going to go back up here and consult my 5-number summary and also my dot plot. Notice my minimum value, the very lowest value is 26. Since there are values then below this 65 mark, what 65 would be about right here, there are observed values below that. So that means I am going to actually keep that as my limit, and then anything below that is going to be flagged as a potential outlier. However, I've got a bit of a problem now with my upper limit being 105. Are there any values out here past 105? No, there aren't, and not only are there no values there aren't any values above 100. So the farthest that makes any sense to draw my whisker here is at 100. So I'm not going to do this. I'm going to use 100 instead. My reasoning is because there's no points out that far. I can only go as far as I actually have data. But now I've got everything I need to draw this box plot. So again, my box is what I'm going to start with. My box extends from Q1 to Q3. So my box goes from 80 to 90. So from here to here is the box. There's supposed to be a vertical line representing the median. The median is at 86, so a little off to the right, but not too far. Try that one more time. Okay. And then I need to draw my whiskers out to those limits. So the upper limit could go to 100 and has to stop there. And then my lower limit is to go to 65. And then I'm supposed to draw any of my potential outliers after that. So it looks like I have like a little cluster of 4 points right below that. And then another cluster of 4 more points. Then a point down here. And then that very low point at about 26.